What is up, homies? Welcome to a review from Heroes Reforged. We are talking about Marvel Studios' Black Widow. After nearly 2 years, the drought of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in theaters is over. I actually turned to Augustine and I said, hey, what was the last MCU movie that came out? Was it Spider-Man Far From Home? And we literally had to sit there and think. We're like, well, we had Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. I guess it was Spider-Man Far From Home. It was just
2019.
crazy.
2019, yeah.
It was really, really good to be back for a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I know a lot of people who are watching this probably have not been to the LCAP, or maybe hopefully in the future you'll get to come, but there's always a really fun presentation when the movie starts. They have Disney music and the curtains open, so it was a really nice preparation to get into the movie. And then the moment the Marvel Cinematic or the Marvel Studios stinger starts and the music starts playing, it got everybody hyped up. So it felt good to be amongst other people who are excited to be back. And I know when we see the movie again, whether it's in IMAX or in 3D this weekend or when it comes out, that to me will be even more special, I think, because that's when the die-hard hardcore fans are going to come out and watch the movie. But it felt good to be back, so I was excited to be back.
Just the whole LCAP, like it gives you a little bit of that Disney magic that's been missing from our lives for a while. You know, it's nice. It's nice.
Did it feel like you guys were almost kind of at Disneyland, technically, kind of?
Well, yeah, because it's all like that. I guess Disney owns that theater, so they have this curtain that opens, and there's like 5 different curtains behind it. Yeah, it's really cool, and then the music feels very Disney. And so, and then the lights are going, and so I'm like, man, this is great. This is really freaking cool.
You guys are giving me FOMO. I wish I had been able to go with you. I got to do the press junket and talk to some of the people in the movie, and I talked to the director. And so they sent me a screener link a few weeks ago, and I had access to it for like 48 hours, and I watched the movie twice in 48 hours. I tried to absorb it as much as I could. As cool as it is, seeing it on your living room with a watermark of your own name across the movie, that does not beat a theater-going experience, especially not the LCAP. I definitely would have loved to have gone with you guys, but just like with F9, I know Adam and I went to go see F9 early, and then we just
last night or a couple nights ago,
a couple nights ago. I am really looking forward to watching Black Widow again, and I want to see it in 3D.
Full spoilers ahead.
This is your warning. This is your warning. Then
Watch
this is our
out,
review and discussion of the movie. Overall, I really, really, really dug this movie. The strongest thing that it has going for it are those 3 new characters that they introduced, especially David Harbour and Florence Pugh. Their characters are really solid and really funny. I was watching some of the Twitter reactions to some of the folks that were at your guys' screening tonight, and I think it was Maud Garrett that was like, I was surprised at how funny Black Widow was and how heartfelt it was. So that to me, I think is the best stuff in the movie. Like I love some of the action. I legitimately thought some of the action was like really well done and on par with like a Daniel Craig Bond or a Bourne movie or one of those kinds of, you know, I don't know if it's at Mission Impossible level, but the action I thought was expertly done. And overall, I really dug it. And I think that the things that the movie has going against it is I think it does fight a little bit of is this too little too late? Like, would audiences have been more on board with this? Or would the movie have maybe hit harder had it come out 8 years ago, 10 years ago, you know, somewhere in a phase 1, phase 2, something like that? Like, what would the Black Widow movie franchise have been if we had gotten that? And could something like that had impacted the rest of the movies in a different way? And so I cannot help, because of the fact that it's set in the year 2016, set right after Captain America Civil War, I can't help but think about the sort of what ifs of the rest of the kind of, you know, larger Marvel universe. But again, all in all, for a solo Black Widow movie, the directing, the acting, the score, the cinematography, the choreography, like, I had a great time. And I also really liked the what they did with Taskmaster. We can get into that. I have a feeling that comic book fans are going to be pissed about it, but it's also like, shut up. Like it feels a little bit like, and maybe I'm in the wrong here because I really like Taskmaster from the comics, but I think that they took the concept and attached it to a more personal and a more personal character to Natasha, as opposed to just having him be a guy named Tony Masters or whatever the Taskmaster's name is in the comic books. It's like, I like that they made it Dreykov's daughter. I think that that's super cool, and I like the way that they used all of the Black Widow sort of mythology and name dropping that they had set up previously in the MCU. So those are my overall thoughts.
I have to agree with a little bit with you about kind of the placement of the movie and you know, too little too late. I would have even been open to this movie coming out after Civil War, you know, in between Captain America Civil War and Doctor Strange, if this was the movie that kind of was like, you know, the lead into like what happened with these characters after those events. And even though we don't know what happened to every single character, at least understanding what happened to Natasha gives us a little bit of an insight of kind of what the rest of those characters are going through. Some of them are captured, some of them, you know, are not captured. But so that I was pretty okay with. And I did like the fact that the movie kind of bookends with both of those things, kind of introducing like what happened, where did she go, and then at the end when she's with Mason, she's like, I have some friends I got to go save, which I thought was really, really cool. And it kind of ties right into, you know, what happens in Avengers Infinity War. So it's like it is kind of perfectly placed in that regard. And I think it kind of worked out for them, honestly, that this movie came out when it did, and that we've had 3 Marvel Cinematic Universe shows to kind of get us into the MCU. And now that we're going back theatrical, you know, I think it was kind of a nice thing to have those other shows tee us up. But in terms of what the movie did for Black Widow, I agree. I think the family dynamic was my favorite part about this movie. If anything, I would have maybe liked to have spent more time with Alexei and Melina and Yelena and with Black Widow, with Natasha, and got to understand a little bit more about not necessarily their family dynamic in the past, because I think the opening prologue of the movie, or the opening of the movie, did a good job sort of solidifying their relationship. And I think like once we get to the part where they reunite 21 years later, it felt really kind of fast paced, and it felt like it was really only there to service the plot. And sometimes there were great character moments, but I would have liked maybe it expanded upon a little bit more, and a little bit of them maybe setting up the tacticalness of what the team is and all those dynamics. We get a lot of that in sort of a flashback sequence later when you see Melina and Natasha sort of planning what they're going to do, which is fine. Right. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of a shortcut, and it's a way for them to just tell us as fast as possible kind of what the skill set of these characters are, and leaving the other characters kind of in the dark on what's happening. I think my favorite stuff, honestly, was in the first 2 acts. The third act I still enjoy, but I feel like once we get into Dreykov's character, Ray Winstone, I don't really care about him. Which I don't know how much I'm really supposed to care. Like, the movie makes it seem like he's very important to the film in the very beginning, when we're understanding the backstory of the Red Room and what they did to all of these young girls and these young women. That in itself kind of was like the engine for me for why Natasha's doing what she's doing. Not only because of Yelena and what happens to her sister, but because of what happens to all the Black Widows in the Red Room. And I feel like that little nugget was the strongest part of the movie for me. And we kind of go in and out of that, and it becomes a little bit of like a personal story for Natasha, but it's also about, you know, avenging everything that's happened to all of these Black Widows and what the Red Room has done. So I feel like it kind of struggles with that a little bit. When it comes to the character Taskmaster, I saw Olga Kurilenko's credit in the opening, and I thought like, whoa, maybe she'll end up being Natasha's mom. For a brief second, I thought maybe she's Taskmaster, but the age didn't really work out for the actor with Taskmaster, so I thought maybe that was going to work out. So when that revelation came, I thought, I don't really have a deep I don't care about this character enough. I don't care about Dreykov's daughter. If the movie's trying to make me feel a little empathetic or sympathetic to that character because of what she's gone through, I'm not really connecting with it. And Ray Winstone, you know, we spend so little time with him, and everything that he's doing, it's all just exposition, explaining to us, I want to do this, and here's what I want to do, and it's I don't know, it didn't really completely work for me. Like, I almost wish that we either would have spent a little bit more time fleshing out that character and what his relationship really is with Natasha. It
or even less time.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like them two kind of butting heads over, you know, their morality, I wasn't really sold by it. Like, I would have believed it more if it was like Melina's character or even Alexei's character. So I feel like that just kind of took away a little bit from the family dynamic. But I did really like the action. The fight scene with Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson in Budapest is amazing. And I know that it's kind of been spoiled because they've shown clips of it, which is a little bit of a bummer. I wish we would have saved some of that for the movie. But all the other sequences, there's so many other great fight sequences and action sequences, and I thought it was really good. And surprisingly, I was kind of surprised that the movie had as much humor as it did.
It's very funny.
And I think when you have an actor like David Harbour, that's going to naturally happen. But I was really surprised with how funny Florence Pugh was. You know, when she's like making fun of Natasha for the posing that she's done.
Scene stealer.
Yeah, and calls her a poser. I found that really refreshing.
I think, just real quick, my favorite comedic bit that Florence Pugh did is, and I think it's a wonderful moment in the movie because it feels like it is women screenwriters, women director in this case, almost like challenging and kind of calling out the previous Black Widow thing where Avengers Age of Ultron established that like they removed the womb of the women that were involved, you know, and there was that whole controversy about that scene between her and Hulk, Bruce Banner, where she's like, I'm a monster too. And it could easily be interpreted as like she's saying, because I can't have children, I'm a monster. If that wasn't the case, if they were just trying to say, oh, I'm a murderer, it's a really scene. It's unfortunate. So then you had Florence Pugh like jokingly telling her like father figure, like they take out your womb. It's just, you know, they go in there, they rip it. And he's like, okay, all right. And I thought it was this great, like earlier too, when her and Widow were at the table and she goes, did you ever want the family? And before she can even like, they can go into it, Florence's character, Yelena, she's like, I want the dog. Because I think the movie's establishing that she as a woman does not feel like she's incomplete because she can't have children, but like her and her life, what she wants is a pet. And that's a completely valid and fulfilling and, you know, just for her to be a sort of person and have her own life and agency and everything. I thought that was great. So that when, she's making her father figure uncomfortable, this man who was also part of the Red Room program, it feels like it is women characters saying like, yeah, that thing is weird in the Marvel movies that was established by Joss Whedon, you know, boo Joss Whedon. Like it's weird that he did that and wrote and directed that. But like we can kind of poke fun at it, have fun with it, make it funny, and almost like retake our agency and reclaim it a little bit. And I think that the Yelena character kind of represents that. So anyway, super funny, but little moments of really like biting and interesting, you know, she's basically taking the piss out of the whole Black Widow mythology is the Yelena character. And it helps. You have to do that when you have a character that's maybe a little overly serious. You got to have a character come in and take the piss out of that. Otherwise, audiences aren't going to be on board. Augustine, what'd you think, man?
I was coming into you guys know how I feel about
coming in hot.
You guys know how I feel about how they treated my girl. I came in hoping that this movie would do justice to Black Widow, and I think it got about 90% there. This movie really made me dislike Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye even more, though, because I'm like, there was literally no reason to kill off this character, to give her a movie, to make me fall in love with her family, to do everything they did in this movie, to know what her fate was. Like, the stakes were high, don't get me wrong. The movie was intense. The fight scenes were incredible. The family dynamics were so good, to know that, like, of course she's gonna make it through this because she has to lead the Avengers, right? But that I don't want to take away from any of that stuff, because I love that they presented everything that you guys talked about, but also the complexity of what it is being in a family. Like, who do you call a family? What do you think a family is? And one of my favorite scenes was when they were all at the dinner table, and Yelena's the youngest one, right? She says, it was real to me, like, this was my family. You were my mom and you were my dad.
Yeah, she was only 6.
Right, exactly. Like, to her, this was a family. And that really struck a chord, because it's just like, yes, like she defined that this was her family regardless of what was going on. Even if she didn't know what was going on, like, this was her world. These were her parents. And it's just like an adopted son or daughter situation. Like, if you adopt a kid, that person's going to be your family regardless of where they came from, right? So I love all of that stuff. I loved all the comedy. In our screening, Adam, remember the person that screamed? So when they were singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie and that bomb comes in, right? Really suddenly, like, the bomb comes in. You remember that part, right?
Super bright light through the window when the ship
Somebody
land.
in our theater screamed, like, full guttural, just like, like, just...
We were laughing so hard.
We weren't laughing at the movie. We were laughing at the person who screams so loud. They did such a good job. Like, to me, this movie felt like it was so close to making a really good statement just by starting off with the music of Smells Like Teen Spirit, while showing children getting abducted all over the world, right? That's terrifying. And that showed me that Disney is kind of taking a step in a direction which normally, we tend to to think that they wouldn't make any kind of a statement on that. The movie, hit on almost all the cylinders. The only thing I don't like about this movie is that I feel like it fell into the trope of having a weak villain. Didn't care about the old guy.
Let's talk about Dreykov for a second. Let's talk about it. Also, just before we get into the villain, how do you guys feel about, especially you, Augustine, if you are now the #1 hater of Clint Barton? Like, what'd you make of that?
1,000%.
That tag, that post credits where Florence Pugh's going to go after.
Bro, I hope she murders him. I hope she murders him in the face. And I hope there's just like closure, because I feel like they did the character so dirty in the past that they're really trying to make up for it by making her storyline, her legacy at least continue a little bit, which is is good, which is it's fine. But at the end of the day, you didn't have to make that decision to kill Natasha when Clint was so easy to just like take out. Because I already didn't care about him and his family. Like, honestly, I sound like a dick, but I did not care about him and his family.
I honestly believe that the only reason they kept Jeremy Renner around a little bit longer was to just set up Kate Bishop, which kind of seems dumb.
They still could have set up Kate Bishop, though.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And
look, it's Natasha gets to be a mentor figure in her own movie, and I think Clint's going to be a mentor in his Disney Plus show. Listen, I don't want to take away any of your righteous anger, Augustine. You're right to be mad that Natasha is no longer with us, but I always think about how that battle, that decision came down to like, well, who would win in a fight, Natasha Romanoff or Clint Barton? Because whoever wins that fight is going to sacrifice themselves because they're such heroes, both of them. Mm-hmm. And it's always Natasha every time. She's going to kick his ass every time. Like, she's better than him across the board.
At the same time, like, they could have done something to where, like, I will never agree with the decision. And now that this movie has come out, my decision is ironclad. Like, sorry, bro. Sorry, Clint. You should have died.
I wonder if the Hawkeye show, just like WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Loki, is going to make us like Clint Barton more than we've ever liked him before.
I think the Mexican delegation has decided, hell no.
Florence Pugh's going to show up and she's going to be like, I'm going to take you out. And Clint's going to be like, you know what? Do it. Because it should have been me. Like, he's going to be the one that's like, it should never have been Nat. It should have been me. I don't know. I
don't think he would do that, because he has a family that he has to protect. That is his first priority at this point. So no, I don't think there's no for me in my head, there's no possible redemption arc that Clint Barton could have at this point.
WandaVision revisited those characters. One of them was already dead, and they sort of brought him back because he's a robot. So we have like a Vision back, but he's white Vision, and he's, his memories are different. And maybe the Vision that Wanda created still exists somewhere. And Wanda, we knew that she's got a future. Falcon and Winter Soldier, both of those characters have futures. Loki, variant Loki. So who the hell knows what's going to happen to him? We know Loki's story is dead. I feel like out of all of the major characters that are getting some of these Disney Plus shows, like Hawkeye, Clint Barton, he very well could die in his show, because lest us forget, that dude just killed a bunch of Mexicans and Japanese people as soon as his family was dusted. And like, the MCU has not addressed that yet, and they might address it because they have been addressing what their other characters have kind of done that the movies have never gotten around to.
Read in their ledger
in the Disney Plus series. So let's talk about the bad guy, Dreykov, because I think you guys are right on the money. I think that he's a weaker villain. Doesn't come close to Killmonger or Vulture or Hela or any of these characters. In fact, I feel like Dreykov almost feels like a Bourne movie villain, because those movie villains, like, I may remember some of the actors that play them, but it's really just about like a man who represents the organization that like brainwashes someone like Jason Bourne. And then like, it's not really like a mano a mano situation. It's like, oh, they're the head of Blackbriar or whatever the hell the organization was in Bourne. So and then even in the Jason Bourne movies, there is, in the first film, when he first gets amnesia, he learns that he got it because he fell off of a boat, and he fell off of this boat because he was shot at or whatever. He didn't go through with this assassination because the guy's daughter was there. Like, the guy's kid was there. That made me think of the flashbacks in this Black Widow movie, because she's there, she sees a little girl go up, that's Dreykov's daughter, and then she needed that confirmation, and then Clint Barton's like, Nat, are we good? Can I blow this? And then he blows it up, and then the whole floor of the building goes. And I felt like, okay, these characters are more important to Natasha than they are to us as characters. It's just the very fact that Natasha thought that she killed this little girl as a means to an end. The movie reveals actually she lived. So now Black Widow is even less cold-blooded killer than we previously thought. I always go back to when I was watching the movie, I kept going back to in my head, the Avengers scene where Loki is calling her out on all her bullshit. That's where all this comes from. Where he says, Dracov's daughter, the hospital fire, how much blood, how much red do you really have in your ledger? And she had to act as though she was like so distraught by this recalling of her mission. So this was supposed to be the one that affected her the most. So I think the movie falters a little bit with like not getting across to Natasha how much this messed with her. And maybe because the movie could have also spent more time with Dreykov being straight up evil and messed up to these young women that he was kidnapping. Right. Like you guys were saying, the movie opens, smells like Teen Spirit, and this thing was harrowing to watch. This was like, Jesus Christ, it's all fictional spy bullshit, but it's commenting on how women disappear every single day around the world, in this country and around the world. And it's so sad and it's so tragic. And the movie was saying something about that. And then it kind of turned into a generic sort of a spy thing at the end of the movie. So like either the movie could have spent more time with Natasha and really got us to feel her sorrow, or spent more time with Dreykov being a real evil bastard so that we get this feeling of like a Vulture, Adrian Toomes, or Thanos, or Hela, where you're like, these guys are just evil, man, so that we would cheer even more when they all exploded or whatever. But I did like how Dreykov's daughter as Taskmaster, like she was saved from her brainwashing. I think that was, obviously key to the whole theme of the movie. So
I think at the end of the day, for me, the big thing about this movie is because they tried to do so much in this movie to really just kind of tell this one singular story for us to understand Natasha's history, what her life was like growing up. I do think now that we're kind of, past everything and we know her fate and all that sort of stuff, I really think that there could have been a really solid 3-part movie series that tells us the origin, building up Dreykov and building up, what all those things are. And then the final movie is kind of like the wrap up of what we see in this film, but you have everything built up so much that you're way more invested. I'm here for the Natasha Romanoff ride, and being able to understand who Yelena is and how her feeling and relationship are towards Natasha is awesome. And I'm totally excited to see her become, the next Black Widow in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. And her relationship, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Valentina. Yeah. I actually prefer the way we got introduced to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character in Falcon.
In this?
Instead of this first.
Let me say this. I imagine that they shot alternate versions of her intro for Black Widow, and then they maybe just like trimmed it down because they knew we've already done the lines where she introduces her name and herself. I feel like that is maybe what happened. But I agree. I think that Black Widow is almost this great chaser once you get through the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You watch those 6 episodes, then you watch this. That feels like it's all part of a similar-ish world. I want these characters to keep popping up, man. I want to see more Yelena. Looks like she's going to be on, I think they're setting up the Thunderbolts, with Thunderbolt Ross being in this as well. It really feels like Valentina may be working with him or for him or above him or something, because they've already got an evil Black Widow. They've got an evil Captain America. Like they're just collecting, Blonsky might be the evil Hulk on this team. No idea what what the rest of this roster is going to be, but this sort of dark Avengers is really cool and really interesting. And I just want to see Alexei come back. I want to see Rachel Weisz's character.
I think the one thing that Ant-Man did really well was those supporting characters, that like tech team. They give them enough screen time that you understand them and you understand the dynamic really, really well. And in this movie, Mason just kind of pops in and out when he's needed for story purposes. And then, he's kind of like a Q, but even Q, has a little bit more oomph to him. So I think it would be cool if this character in some capacity comes back. But if Nat's out of the picture, does that mean he's out of the picture? I don't know. We'll see.
Guys, he didn't get an Avengers jet on accident. He's connected
there you
somehow. Go. I don't think this is the last time we're going to see him, because honestly, you're never going to get an Avenger to just give you a jet. Just say, hey, Avengers, I got about $30 million. Can you give me one of those jets? Tony's not going to.
Man. I really like this movie. I cannot wait to see it again in 3D. I want these characters to return. Even Mason, if he didn't get enough in this movie, I had a chance to talk to that actor, Oti Fagbenle, and he was saying, he goes, at one point, we talked about me just showing up in a tuxedo, because it's sort of like, where does my character go in between, so like he just shows up and he's in a tuxedo. You got your helicopter, but he's in a tuxedo because he went on some True Lies mission or something in between. So I think there's potential there, and I really hope that audiences dig it, and I hope that they're maybe a little forgiving for some of the issues that the movie has, because it's like there's some great female characters in this, and a lot of potential to open up the world and to bring back some of those other women in the Red Room that are now also like free from being brainwashed. Like, what the hell are they doing? Like, what, you know, are they good? Are they bad? What's going on? Bring them back. Right. So
I feel like we said everything fairly well. I like this movie. I hate Clint Barton. I feel like this movie is also special because it's the first time we get the Disney Plus MCU official crossover. Like we have Valentina show up. That's huge. It's big. Like, this officially connects everything on Disney Plus to here, which is a big moment. And if you think about it, it's the opposite of what Samuel L. Jackson was doing with the Avengers initiative. So she's going around collecting people instead of Samuel L. Jackson going around connecting good people. So we'll see what happens. I think it's an exciting time. I think the next phase of Marvel is going to be incredible. I love that this movie felt like they kind of let the director have a bit of a go at it. So yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the next one.
Give me a good time, baby. It just was so nice to be back in the theater for a Marvel movie again. So I can't wait to go see it again. Guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Marvel Studios' Black Widow? If you got a chance to go see it in theaters, did you see it in IMAX? Did you see it in 3D? Let us know what it was like.
Better see it in 3D.
I want to know. I think Black Widow might be the first movie for a lot of people that watch us. So I would love to know your guys' feelings on being back at the movie theater. Let us in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next review.